Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Mess. So, taking out a super fun and exciting episode for you guys today because PS2 Recomp as a tool to recompile PlayStation 2 games to a modern C environment like Windows has released. And even though it isn't a finalized thing, I received like 30 or 40 messages on Discord and Twitter yesterday talking about this news and if I was going to make a video. And you know full well anything decomp, recomp, or PC port related is going to show up on the channel. But I always love when people give me some news links. It definitely helps me out because keeping this channel running 2 videos a day is definitely a lot of effort. But I do want to caveat this in just a moment. But first, what I want you to understand is this is very similar to the N64 Recomp tool, most recently used for Banjo Recompiled. This is something that basically takes the original game and recompiles it on the fly to work on a new, more modern operating system. It's something we've been seeing a lot of recently, and I think in 2026 you're going to see a metric crap ton of recomps and even PC ports. But do be aware, recompilation does not require a decompilation of the source code. You can static recompile a game without actually decompiling the entire thing. They're two sides of the same coin and two ways to get the same thing done, but they are different. So if you take a look at the GitHub repo, which I will link in the description below, you'll see here PS2 Recomp is a PlayStation 2 static recompiler, and it is indicated as not ready. The developer of this, Ranjay or Ranjay, not sure how to pronounce it, is notating that it is still in development and it isn't quite ready for prime time. And even though we will take a look at the source code in just a bit, and it does seem to be very mature, not every single bit of the framework is implemented here, so if you actually try to recomp a PlayStation 2 game with this tool, you wouldn't get all that far as of yet. And I want you to be aware of something. There's more than one way to actually decompile, recompile, or port something. You can basically use Ghidra and try to go through everything. You can set up a tool chain kind of like N64 Recomp or PlayStation 2 Recomp to aid in that, but absolutely nothing is going to be air quotes free. Something like the N64 Recomp tool, you can't just put a ROM into it and expect a game to run on the PC with one click. It does require work, it does require attention, or else we'd already have the entirety of the N64 library on PC today. It would be an amazing reality, it's just not the one we actually deal with right now. And as far as PlayStation 2 recomps are concerned, you'll see here Fatal Frame, one of the ones leading the charge. This is being decompiled. To do something like a recomp, you do not have to decompile the code, although you will have to go through and bug fix a lot of different things. But honestly, PlayStation 2 seems to be the next target console as far as these recomps and PC ports are concerned. N64 is leading the charge. We've seen a few on 360, and we've seen a bunch of GameCube decompilations, but I feel like the next big thing is going to be PlayStation 2 recomps and PC ports, because the library is absolutely massive, and even though PCSX2 is an incredible emulator, getting these games in a more modern environment would be a ton of fun. And soon I will be talking about the Fatal Frame and Fatal Frame 2 decomps, as well as some of the actual progress they have of running some things on PC like you see here. Big thanks to the Silent Hill Discord server. I talked to a few of the people that actually are developing this, and they said I could use the footage, and I definitely appreciate that because I always ask before I run these sort of things. But honestly, this tool could be very important moving forward. You'll see here, as far as the feature set is concerned, it's going to translate the MIPS R5900 instructions to C++ code and a bunch of other things. But that first line right there, translating the instruction set, is the most important, because the MIPS CPU, as far as instructions are concerned, is completely different than a C++ code set, and the hardware is going to be different on the CPU. MIPS is not the same as the x86 processor that you're probably watching this video using, so you do need to pivot over that instruction set. But because N64 is also a MIPS-based CPU, as is PlayStation 1, there is a lineage and history of recompiling things from MIPS over to a more modern CPU, and that definitely makes a big difference. And on some of these things, when you see them go over to Mac as well, there might be some ARM support in the future. I do not know what something like the PS2 Recomp tool would be targeting as far as different builds are concerned, because obviously it's not there yet. But if this tool matures and does become viable, you'll be in an environment where developers and fans can basically just try to port PlayStation 2 games to PC and kind of give you the best of both worlds, retro games in a modern environment. And honestly, that's something that's going to become very popular, because even though we have FPGA consoles for stuff like N64, we're not there yet for PlayStation 2, and it really feels like maybe 10 years off. And honestly, with the enhancements that recompilation can give you, I feel like that would be a better target to work towards in the future than doing something like an FPGA core for a system that has a frame buffer, not really super worried about cycle accuracy there. Now as far as how this works, it's going to explain it to you, but it parses a PS2 ELF file, and if ELF doesn't sound familiar, just think of it as an executable file, kind of doing the exact same thing in some ways, but it's decoding the MIPS instruction set in each function, and then it translates those over to a C++ code. Think of basically a real-time audio translation of one language to the other, but we're actually not trying to speak to a different human, we're trying to speak to a different processor and instruction set, and make sure that the actual game ELF and all of the files can communicate to that new instruction. You'll see here the example is going to be different between the MIPS CPU as well as the more modern C++ code, but they are doing the exact same function. It's one of those things, think of it this way, if you have to drive to the grocery store, there's more than one route you can take there, but at the end you accomplish the same thing, you arrive at your destination. Different instruction sets are going to accomplish the same task, they're just doing different methodologies as to how to be able to do it. And honestly, it's going to be a lot of fun for potential of PlayStation 2 Recomps, because even though I love my PS2 hardware and I love my library, it is one of those things, I enjoy playing it more on PCSX2 for the enhancements, so the idea that we could have 16:9, 120 frames per second enhanced graphics on something like PS2 Recomps would be incredible. And now you will see here there is a configuration file as well to input the ELF, the output directory, the function to stub or skip certain commands, and instruction paths. And I will explain here, it does get a little bit involved, but you'll see here, this is the input and output of the actual game ELF into where you want it. You can stub functions or skip functions, that way they're not actually going to be involved in the recompilation. And you'll see down below in the patches, that is memory address patching. The address is equal to a certain place, and it's telling it to actually write that value of the zeros. This is very similar to how patches in some games work, where you're actually kind of just overwriting the memory with new values so that when you run the patch, it is executing that data from the right address. And again, I understand this gets a little bit in depth when we talked about the most recent ease translation. Stuff like this is actually kind of how it is working to apply the patches. So you would have real-time memory address patching in something like the PS2 Recomp tool. And if we take a look back at the GitHub, you're going to see there are some limitations, including limited support for the VU1 microcode, as well as the graphics synthesizer or GPU and other hardware components needing external implementation. That just is what is saying this tool is not quite ready for prime time yet. You can't use it and just make a recomp to PC of a PlayStation 2 game. But with the amount of press it's getting and the amount of work the developer has seemingly done on this, it seems like it has a very promising future. And again, I totally understand software emulation exists, PCSX2 is incredible, but imagine a world in which PlayStation 2 games could get a static recompilation to PC. We've seen it so much on the N64 side of things, and it has been absolutely incredible, and everyone enjoys playing them, because you can take something like Banjo Kazooie that looks like this on Analog 3D or Mr. FPGA, and end up going to something that looks like this on the static recomp, and this is just an N64 game. Imagine all the incredible PlayStation 2 games that you could get recomps of that would benefit from widescreen support, from high frame rates, from new controls, mods, and everything else you could possibly throw at them. So leave me a comment down below and you tell me what's the one PlayStation 2 game you'd love to see get a static recomp day one if you could snap your fingers. For me, it's gotta be God Hand. But it's one of those things, I want you to understand one more time that these tools are not drag and drop, they are not one-click conversions, they still require human input and a hell of a lot of it for that. It's one of the things that you just basically use it as a tool, it does some of it for you, but then you have to manually work with it. It's kind of like DaVinci Resolve as I edit these actual videos. It does half the work for me, but I still have to put all the human input into the application to make sure at the end everything comes out. But you'll see here, if we take a look at the N64 Recomp tool, it is basically doing the exact same thing. It is transposing the instruction set. And if we take a look at the actual source code here on the PS2 Recomp tool, it is quite mature, and I can read a little bit of it. I don't understand absolutely everything, but you can kind of parse through and see exactly what is going on. If we go down a little bit more, you're going to see different components of the PlayStation 2, at least implemented in this Recomp. A lot of it's going to be completely gibberish, but right here we have a lot of the floating point unit data, and that's something that basically it has a 32-bit single precision FPU unit within the PlayStation 2 hardware, and that would have to be factored into the Recomp. All these different floats and integers here, that is in the code, and maybe one day it'll be transposed into a C++ environment and playable on your PC. But that is the news. It seems like people are planning on some PlayStation 2 recomps in the future, and I absolutely love to see it. Because when people ask why N64 gets more recomps than any other platform, I always say in the comments, it's because of the mature and robust tool set and software library that aid developers in doing these things. So if we had the equivalent on PlayStation 2, suddenly you'd go from having no recomps whatsoever to probably having dozens upon dozens. But we're done, I'll see you next time. Bye bye.